So how did I get involved in long distance target shooting? I grew up in a rural part of New York State, about 30 miles south of Syracuse, kind of a dairying area, and a household where we hunted. I had an older brother, father. We hunted partridge and rabbits in the fall and deer in the late fall and woodchucks in the summer after the farmers started taking hay off the fields. So I kind of grew up in a gun culture. That by itself doesn't result in becoming a competitive shooter. But there was something unusual about our little town. This was a village of 1,000 people at a centralized school district of about 600 students, K through 12, all in one building. And we shot guns in the basement. We had a rifle range. In fact, we had probably the best rifle range in central New York State in that school. And you sort of wonder, well, how did that happen? Well, it happened because the principal of the school, who'd been there for many years and oversaw the construction of a major addition, was also the coach of the rifle team. So that explained a lot. His name was Mr. Bear. And if you wanted to go to Central Casting and say, I need a German major who's going to be in the turret of a Panzer tank for the brigade, you'd come up with Mr. Bear. That's what he looked like. And nobody wanted to go to Mr. Bear's office. He was a great guy. He retired when I was like a sophomore. So it was my first year on the rifle team. So my brother before me was on the rifle team. As fate would have it, he's a better shot. He got his NRA distinguished rating. I only got an NRA expert rating. So coming out of high school, I've been involved in the basics, the fundamentals of target shooting. It's indoor. I suspect this is kind of a, I won't say dying, it's probably a dead thing now. At best, you're going to be shooting air guns in a basement. But that's what the 50-foot target looks like. So we both went on our separate ways. He actually wound up dropping out of college, enlisting in the Army, going to OCS, becoming a second lieutenant, and then pulling 2 combat tours of duty in Vietnam. Happily, when the fighting was in the highlands, he was in the Delta, and when the fighting was in the Delta, he was back in the highlands again. So he came out of that lot of scratch. He went on to be a career Army officer, retired as a colonel, and still a better shot than I am. So kind of my shooting life became kind of quiescent. I got married, had kids, started moving around, became a corporate gypsy. And then really until my own kids were in their teenage years, I had 3 guns that I had from 3 rifles that I had from the time when I was young. And I started to get them involved in just bench press shooting, get familiar with firearms, but nothing really competitive target shooting. And then several years later, my brother, who'd become a major collector of firearms, got me interested in collecting old military firearms. And back 20 years ago, they were a lot of them around because a lot of the arsenals of Europe were being emptied out, both in the Eastern Bloc, but also in other parts of Europe. They had warehouses full of World War I, World War II era rifles that were obsolete by military standards, but still functional. So these were circulating. If you got 100,000 rifles and you want to sell them, where are you going to sell them? You're going to sell them in the US because most other countries aren't interested. Markets aren't big enough and the governments may not want them. So he got me interested in collecting. And then I finally retired. I collected a bunch of rifles. We retired to the mountains just west of Denver. And I was looking around for a gun club, and I found Buffalo Creek Gun Club. And it turns out, in addition to a normal, handgun 100-yard rifle range, they had a 600-yard range. And you wonder, how did that come about? Well, the founders of the club were hunting for mule deer, and they stumbled across what they recognized was a rifle range back in the national forests west of Denver. And it turned out the Army had developed the range in World War I, abandoned it in the 20s, opened it up again in World War II, abandoned it after World War II. They found it after World War II, and the founders of that club got the money together basically to restore the range, bring it back into a serviceable range for shooting up to 600 yards, which would be in the realm of across the course. So I kind of was aware of this, and then I saw they were going to hold a vintage rifle across the course match. So it was sort of basically not AR-15s, but basically anything before that. So I had a few of those, so I said, well, I'm going to do this. So I went, and I think 6 guys showed up. Only 2 of them were seniors, me and one other guy. I had a 1903 Springfield rifle. That little flip-up ladder sight, old action. And I won in the senior division because the other guy shot worse than I did. Not because I shot that well, but I was hooked at that point. This was a blast. So that's kind of how I got started with this. And when we wound up getting a second home and eventually our primary home down here, close to Ben Avery, they've got all kinds of great ranges at Ben Avery. So I'm going to give you a real quick overview of what happens on the 1,000-yard range, but the focus of this will be on what's called across the course, which is kind of an old format that the military developed, and it still lives on. The 1,000, how many of you have been in the 1,000-yard range? Ever even physically been on it? Have any ever shot on it? Okay, you've seen it. The 1,000-yard range there is 1,000-yard shooting. That's probably the most active group on that range. It's become very popular. There are 2 divisions. There's a sling division and a bipod division. They shoot at slightly different targets. In order to do that, you have to be willing to put quite a bit of money into equipment. You need really good equipment to shoot at that distance. And you need to be able to read wind. Shooting at that distance is not that hard to hold the 10 ring of a target, of a 1,000-yard target. The 10 ring is probably about this big. But the problem is the wind will move a bullet. A 5-mile-an-hour crosswind will move a bullet about that far at 600 yards and about that far at 1,000 yards. So shot to shot, it's all slow fire, it's all prone. So the trick to shooting 1,000 yards is you have to be able to read wind, and that you're not going to learn that in the book. You just have to have hours on the range. There's also an older group called Palma. It goes back to the 19th century. It's an international competitive format.
Okay, we're all set.
Whoa!
You just got to log it.
Just like that. Thank you very much. How do I?
You just
step over it.
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine. I'll move. You don't have to. Yes.
When I said I entered this first competition at the Buffalo Creek Gun Club, that was the winner's picture. Me on the right was the 1903 Springfield. Try to find a few pictures to go in here, because otherwise it becomes a PowerPoint that you probably all have. Talk about the 1,000-yard.
You go to full screen.
And catch up here. The competition international goes back to 1876. It's basically
Brian, why don't you go to full screen?
I know a couple of Palma shooters, excellent shots. They know everything about firearms. And the guy I know the best said, if you want to become a serious Palma shooter, you got to be willing to put out about $40,000 worth of equipment and travel internationally, because the matches are held in New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, Canada, the United States, and Britain. I think those are the countries that participate in Palma. It's iron sights only. Has to be either 223 Remington or a 30 caliber. At 15 shots, prone, 800, 900, 1,000 yards. And you definitely need a matched quality rifle.
Try double clicking on that frame.
Yeah, just
There,
hey,
there you go.
it's better. Nope. Okay. The across the course format, I said that was basically developed by the military. When smokeless powders and magazine rifles kind of became the standard for militaries around the world, they needed training appropriate to the fact that you can now have relatively rapid fire through the magazine and at relatively long distances because of the development of smokeless powder. So they invented this format that was a combined both slow fire, rapid fire, 3 different positions and 3 different distances. Here we are. And it is, unlike the 1,000-yard and the Kullman, it is a real test of marksmanship more than a test of equipment. You can get by with pretty, I wouldn't say mediocre equipment, but garden variety rifles. But you've got to be a pretty good shooter to score well. Thank you. Thank you, Larry. There are 2 different divisions in across the course. By the way, you can call that ecstasy. That's what XDC is, ecstasy. The service rifle division, the rifle has to outwardly look like a current U.S. military weapon, but the internals can be customized and accurized, but it has to outwardly look like that. An important issue that's developed in the last few years is that because the military now uses scopes up to 4 power and standard equipment, then the service rifle can also use a telescope. This has been a big deal in the people that are serious about this because as you age, it becomes very hard to shoot iron sights. Military issue iron sights with just an aperture in the rear opposed to the front. The human eye, once you're past the 40s, the human eye has a hard time resolving that post against the black backdrop of the target. So scopes make it a lot easier for people who are aging to compete. There's also a service rifle subclass which is basically vintage military. With 1903 Springfield, 1917 Enfield, 1903 A3, which was a World War II remake of the 1903 Springfield, and an M1. Hatch rifles are basically anything but just one of those. Just personally, I shot the across the course here with that rifle at the top. That's a 1903 A3 Remington. Kicks like a mule, and beats your position down. You start to shoot a bit from the sitting position with that constant recoil and rapid fire. You're hard very quickly. The rifle at the bottom is one that after about 3 years, my shooting buddy said, "Mike, what are you shooting it for?" That is the space gun. That looks more exotic than it is. It's just an AR-15 lower barrel and a stock that is multi-way adjustable, probably 2 multi-way adjustable. One of my guy used to use it for 800,000-yard shooting. We're shooting, and as you can see, it's got a big telescope. In all target shooting, you got to be a shooter. You also have to be a scorer. You have to work in the target pits. I suspect that maybe you've never been in a target pit. When shooting is going on, your back is to the shooters. There's a big protection berm behind you and a concrete wall. The targets are on big frames that are elevated so the shooter can see it. When the shooting is happening, you're looking not at the shooters, but you're looking at an impact about 100 feet beyond the target line. And when you're on target 46, you're just staring at the earth. There's a little marker that tells you it's target 46, waiting for a tough dust to hit, and shots been fired. So everyone who shoots also has to score because it's a pair activity. No scoring, just no point shooting. And there's a rotation of the participants between the target line and the target hits at 3 points in a normal match. Inside a target, the shooting is in that direction. The target, you actually can see one of the targets on the frame elevated in the upper left corner of the picture. The targets, the whole target is about 5 by 5 feet. The actual target, this is what's called the repair center. This is what goes after the target's been shot up. You use wallpaper paste to paste this over a much larger target to give you a new training target to shoot at. This is a 200-yard target. And 200-yard target, basically the same size, except the black is bigger. The reason for that is when you're shooting iron sights, remember this format developed in the world of iron sights, the black bullseye has to appear the same size to the shooter, whether you're shooting at 200 yards, 300 yards, or 600 yards. So just make the black part bigger. And the base of the 600-yard target, bullseye gets bigger. Shooting at the 10 rings about the size of, actually this is 1,000 yards. But same idea. 1,000-yard target's the same way. The black is going to appear, the bullseye appears the same size, no matter what distance you're shooting. In the marking of targets, I said there's both a slow fire and a rapid fire stages to this. Slow fire, each shot is scored. So a shot is taken, the target is lowered. You have to find the bullet hole, which is not always that easy, particularly with a 22 caliber bullet. And to find the bullet hole, you do two things. Put a marking disc in the bullet hole. Now here's the quiz. You got a black marking disc and a white marking disc. When do you use which one? Your choices are you put the black on the black or you put the white on the black. What's it going to be? White on the black.
White on the black. Yeah.
Good guess. And if you're outside the black in the white area of the target, the black. So that tells the shooter where the impact, where the bullet went through the target. There's also all the scoring disc. This is hung on the perimeter of the target at a location that tells the shooter whether it was a 10, a 9, an 8, a 7, 6, a 5, or a miss. So that's, and this goes back to, way before cell phones and CB radios. That's how you communicate from the target pits to the shooters what they just accomplished. In rapid fire, the difference is 10 shots are taken in a time period of 60 to 70 seconds. The target stays up that entire time. The scorer is looking at the impact berm counting impacts because you want to know you get 10 shots, 10 seconds, 60 seconds, sitting 70 seconds prone. That's why you know, did all the rounds get fired? Or was there an extra round? Because you can have crossfires. That's fairly common where someone shoots on the wrong target. So you wind up with too many holes. So in the rapid fire, after the shooting period, what are called groups and scores are reported. And those are reported by putting golf tees in the bullet holes. That's one of my best ever groups. So that's 300-yard prone rapid fire in the 10 ring. You can get the size of it from my hand, and those are the golf tees. So that's a 106X. This is kind of been blocked out, but this is the X ring. The purpose of the X ring counts to 10. The purpose of it is to break ties. And ties, when you have a bunch of good shooters competing, and there's a number of them, ties are quite possible, even in an 800-point match. And the X ring was only developed after some competition in the 1930s, where the two guys at the end finished tied, dead heat. There's no X ring. So they went into a sudden death shoot-off. It took 72 rounds before one of them shot something other than a 10. So at that point, they decided, and it was getting dark, and they were saying, we're ever going to finish this match. So they developed the idea of an X ring, basically just to break ties. So that's where the phrase 10X comes from, the X ring inside the 10 ring. Just looking forward, electronic targets have been in development and are now quite widely in use. And that's beginning to displace electronic targets. basically have a sensor at each corner of the big target frame. And I think what they do is measure just the difference in time as the shock wave of the bullet goes through. The difference in time between when each sensor picks it up can be used to locate where the bullet went through the target. The result is displayed visually on a tablet that the shooter has on the line. So you shoot, and then almost immediately you have a picture of the impact on basically a picture of a target. It's not, there is no real target there. But you have one imposed on the tablet, and then the bullet hole on the target, and it keeps track of your score as well. So you not only see each one as you shoot it in slow fire, but it keeps a record where you see where each impact was. So you see the group begin to develop. Ben Avery has electronic targets, but they're all owned by individuals. And I think they're in motion now to make a large number of them available. Eventually, they'd like to basically convert to electronic targets. Speeds things up a lot because you don't have any pip changes. You don't have to rotate between shooters and between the shooting line and target line. That's the coming thing. Okay, the overview of an across the course match, 80 shot match. You shoot 200 yards, you shoot standing slow fire, 20 shots. That's followed by 200 yards sitting rapid fire, 2 strings, 10 shots each. 300 yard prone rapid fire. So that means you fall back to 300 yards. And then 600 yard prone slow fire, 20 shots. The total shots for record is 8. You get 8 siders, 2 siders each distance. And pit changes occur when you've got paper targets. Pit changes occur at 15. So you don't shoot all 80 shots in a row. You shoot like 40 and then rotate to the pits and then come back and do more shooting. One of the things that is kind of was unique to the U.S. military is we were the only one to use a shooting sling. An American rifle sling of the World War I, World War II, Korea era was both a carry strap and an aid to shooting. Although the reality is, of actual combat, is very few soldiers had time to put a sling on. But the American military hung on to this for a long time. Every other country in the world, the sling is just a carry strap. It does provide great stability and consistency from shot to shot. The downside is once you're slung in and you're down, particularly prone, you don't have a lot of mobility. It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to move. And just as a comment, for reasons I don't understand, they don't allow the sling while you're shooting standing. That's unlike the 50-foot indoor that I started with. So there's no sling in the standing position, but everywhere else you can and will use a sling. Safety and range commands in a match that's kind of formally organized. You've got a range officer on the line in control of everything. You've got a pit officer in the pits staying on top of people, making sure that targets are being scored. After each shooting activity, whenever there's a line change, the line is made safe. And during that, and when there's a relay, so the relay change, the first relay they shoot, and then the second relay goes to the line, the first relay goes off, the line is made safe. And an empty chamber indicator, that little yellow range flag, has to be in place at all times, except when you're on the firing line. Slow fire, 200 yards, single round load only, so you don't load to the magazine. You have 3 minutes. Some of this is true of all of these events. You have 3 minutes to prepare to shoot. It's called prep time, during which time you can handle the rifle, you get everything except loaded. Dry firing is okay. Then you get 2 sighters in 2 minutes. And you can make slight adjustments if you need to. Then you go for 20 shots for record in 20 minutes. At each shot, the target is pulled down, scored, and re-raised. And my personal comment is shooting standing is hard. That's why my brother was a better shot. He could shoot standing better than I could. Sitting rapid fire, 200 yards, same distance, same target. 2 separate strings, 10 shots each, 60 seconds. 2 sighters are permitted after the 3-minute prep time. You begin in the sitting position of the NRA rules. There are different rules for CMP. CMP, you start standing, but in NRA, you start in position in your sitting position. You begin with both magazines or clips on the ground. So when the target is elevated, when you're ready to fire, the targets come up you have to load one magazine in. You have to make one magazine change during the 10 shots. And the reason for that is, some of that is history. Back when this all started, the 1903 Springfield shot from a 5-round stripper clip. So in order to get 10 shots on, you have to load, shoot the 5 shots, load another stripper clip in, shoot another 5 shots, and then you're done. When the M1 was developed, it has an 8-shot and block clip. The whole thing goes into the rifle. So they had to figure out how much. It used to be 5 and 5, so they decided to go to 8 and 2. Although the 2-shot and block clip is a specialized clip, you can't just use any old one; it won't work. You have to use one that's specifically developed for handling only 2 shots. And in the rapid fire setting, after you get your groups and scores received from the first 10 shots, you may need to make a sight adjustment. And you're not going to make a sight adjustment while you're shooting. There's enough time. You can't see what's happening. But only after that, only after you get your first group, that you might say, well, I need to move 2 clicks to the left. Prone rapid, it's all the same, except you're shooting from the prone position, you're shooting from 300 yards. It's a 70-second time period. It's longer, I think, only because the old way you have to start standing. So to go from standing to a prone position takes a little longer to go from standing to sitting, because the good guys just stand there with their legs crossed, and when it goes, down they go in their position. At 300 yards, you need about 2 minutes of elevation change over a 200-yard zero. It's kind of a pretty good rule of thumb. And wind does become a factor. 200 yards in something other than a hurricane, the wind isn't that big a deal on the bullet. Maybe you as a shooter, and you're trying to stand and you got a wind blowing at you. But the bullet isn't going to be affected all that much at 200 yards. At 300, wind begins to be a factor. And again, you often have to make a sight change after the first 10 shots, because the wind, either you weren't as sighted as you thought you were, or the wind actually changed between the two strings. Slow fire prone, shooting prone with a sling. Sights have to be elevated 10 to 12 minutes above the 200-yard zero. Wind is an issue from shot to shot. So, although I haven't mastered it, I'm more reactive to the wind. I shoot, I get a result, I don't like it, it's the right, it's the wind change. A good shooter, and as I said, there are no really good young shooters. They have to look at the wind conditions and decide from the last shot what they need to do to kind of mentally have a picture of what the wind conditions were the shot before and what they are now, and then make a sight adjustment. There are 2 aids to doping the wind. This is a range flag. These are across the course match. There'll be 6 to 9 of these hung out in the match. They're long and they're tapered. They're down to the end, and that taper results in them being very sensitive to both the direction and the velocity of the wind. So when you're on the line looking out, you'll see all these flags. On a good day, they're all kind of doing the same thing. On a bad day at Ben Avery, you got one going this way and one going that way, because you've got that big hill behind, and the wind, the north wind, will come rolling over that hill and create vortices, which makes it the wind, the mirage. And I will get into that. Slide. Oh, just as a comment, I'm one of these old guys. Being slinged in a prone position for 25 minutes, which is about as long as it is a bit of a strain. Great stable shooting position, but I'm not 25 any longer. Reading the wind. I've stumbled into this already. Just to give you an idea, 5 mile/hour crosswind, which is a noticeable crosswind. 5 miles an hour doesn't sound much, but it is. It'll change your point of impact by about 3 minutes of angle at 600 yards. So that'll turn a 10-ring hold into a 7-ring result. If your hold looks, you're looking at it and said that was a 10-ring shot, and then you get a 7 back. And you say, what happened? Well, the wind stopped blowing, or the wind started blowing. Something changed. Mirage. On a sunny day, which you have a lot of in Arizona, that sun creates air that's moving up, and it actually makes kind of a shimmering appearance. And when the wind blows, that shimmer will move in the direction of the wind. You got a wind blowing from my left, and mirage will move this way. If it's really blowing, it's moving this way. I'm not that skilled in reading mirage, but I know the guys who do shoot really well. They're using both their rifle scope and a spotting scope and looking at the mirage, and the real serious ones will look at it at different distances. They want to know what the mirage is at 300 yards as well as 600 yards. You can see mirage in a rifle scope. I think I shoot with a 3x15 scope, so I shoot at that distance. I'll shoot at 15 power, and the mirage is quite evident. I just can't always interpret it properly. As I said before, the key to being a really good shooter is make your sight change before you shoot, not in response to what just happened. But that doesn't prevent you from enjoying yourself, even if you're not one of those guys who can read the wind. What do you need for equipment across the course? You need a rifle that's capable of 10 shots in 60 seconds. That can be a semi-automatic or a bolt rifle, but the bolt rifle, anything with a traditional bolt rifle with a scope on top, you can't get 5 shot. You can't reload it unless you're reloading for a stripper clip. It pretty much says you've got a military style rifle, or you've got a detachable magazine in a bolt rifle. Accuracy wise, all you need is to be able to shoot about a 3-inch group at 200 yards. That's basically decent hunting rifle performance. You don't need target rifle performance. You don't need 5 shots in one ragged hole at 100 yards. You need that for palm up, not for this. You need a gun case. We need a sling. You need a hard or soft case to bring a weapon from where you park the vehicle to where the shooting line is, so you're not walking around with rifles behind the shooters. The shooting mat, which can be, you probably don't want to use your wife's yoga mat. If you ever, they do sell them for $100, you can get all kinds of shooting mats. An old piece of carpet would do in a pinch. Or the Marines that shoot there from time to time, they're real men. They just lay on the sand. You need a shooting coat. It's actually a moderate weight, like a fall weight jacket would work. This is the shooting coat I had. My brother refers to it as a straight jacket, which is kind of the purpose of it. It kind of cinches you in, particularly standing. It really puts a lot of pressure all around your chest and stabilize the core of your body, where the motion comes from. Glove, which again, any glove would work. A ski glove would work fine. A heavy mitt would work fine. This is what a $20 shooting glove looks like. And it's the purpose of it is both the kind of high friction rubber here to hold the forearm, but also to absorb some of the pressure. Particularly when you're down for 20 minutes in the sling, there's pressure against your hand all the time, so that tends to. And finally, a spotting scope for reading scoreboards. One of my props in the rapid fire events. This is how they report. I told you how they reported the group by using the golf tees. This is how they report the score. You just chalk it on this, put it on the top of the target frame, and hoist it up. And you have to be able to read this from the 200 and the 300 yard line. With a 15 power scope, I can barely read a chalk score in here at 300 yards. So, but I won't be able to use it now. Yep, Ben Avery is available in terms of across the course shooting. There's a kind of an informal practice held most Wednesday mornings throughout the year. I say informal, and it's a small group of guys, 4 to 8 show up. That's kind of typical turnout. That's where I do pretty much all my shooting. So it's run a little less formally than they would in a larger match because the safety concerns are a little less. Everybody there knows what they're doing, and they observe common sense safety without going through the full formalities of a match. There's often a monthly match on Saturdays. That's a bit more formal, a bit more people show up. It's done in part to allow people who are working on Wednesday mornings to have an opportunity to shoot across the course. There's state and regional championships. Actually, there's one going on right now at Ben Avery, the Southwest regionals or Southwest National for across the course. That's a very formal match.
So do they allow spectators?
And the last thing,
Brian?
heading toward.
Do they allow spectators?
Yeah, oh yeah,
So you guys are shooting, we come in.
yeah. You could. It'd be a good thing to do is to just in fact, if you had time to go right now. I mean, the Southwest Nationals will be the next like 3 days. I think. And you'll see you got some very serious shooters in there. The last thing I want to talk about is the Arizona State Rifle and Pistol Association Washington's birthday clinic and match. That's coming up very soon. This is the 136th consecutive year that this event has been held. So this goes back to Arizona Territory days before the state. It's sponsored by the ASRPA. Shooters can attend either or both days. So the first day is a clinic, the second day is a match. The entry fees are moderate. And it depends on whether you want one day or the other day or both days. The clinic is coming up February 24th, Saturday next. And the clinic is designed for shooters that are new to across the court. So it's an opportunity to get people that may have no familiarity with shooting a rifle, or to people that have shot a rifle, shot an AR-15, but have never done it in a formal setting, like an across the course match. On Saturday, there are ASPRA members here to provide instruction in both shooting and scoring. With advance notice, some equipment, aka rifles, are available to use and ammo can be purchased, but it just has to be arranged in advance. And after the morning clinic on Saturday, there's an open practice period in the afternoon, so you can try to put the use. The match itself is on Sunday. Because of the tradition, military type rifles are preferred. It could either be a current or a vintage one. It's a 50-shot match, not an 80-shot match. And it's all from the 200-yard line. And the way you do that is the target rings, if you want the 300-yard target rings, the black bull is the same size as the 200-yard bull, but they put more rings inside it. And the 600-yard target, again, the black will be about this big around, but you've got about 4 scoring rings inside that center area. Like the very first time I ever shot at a 200-yard line, across the court match, it was at the 200-yard distance. The format says 50 shots. It's 10 slow standing, 10 sitting rapid, 10 sitting, 10 rapid prone, and then you finish with 20 slow prone. Set the ruler size target. Shooters grouped in teams of 4, either pre-group or just group you when you get there. The emphasis is not so much on the outcome of the match. The emphasis is on the camaraderie with other shooters and having a good time. Final comment, the contact information for across the course. And I have a handout for this for anyone who's interested. Desert Sharpshooter is kind of this overall has responsibility for the 1,000-yard range. And for a while I said, how do you join? How do you join? Because I wanted to join. Well, there is no join. I mean, I won't go into the legalities behind it. But they have a website which explains what they are, and very importantly, they have a calendar on the website that tells you what activities are going on. It's not just this, there are other activities that they keep track of. There's 200-yard, 300-yard, so there's a lot of things in addition to across the course. The Washington birthday match itself has a website that's under the ASRPA website. The event leader is David Geyer. I know him really well. He's a great guy and a great shot. And then there's my contact information if you have any further questions. So that is. If I've told anybody I'm trying it, but I hope I piqued your interest. If not, gotten you to. Here's the. I'll just leave these here. I'll just leave these right here. Contact information. And
Brian,
certainly if you have questions. Yes.
Yeah. Their own ammo that they load.
By and large, yes, but not everybody. People that shoot, I reload distance. also. When I was shooting at 30-06, that gets to be expensive too. Yeah, it's kind of like a so, yeah, and to me, reloading is fun. Some people it's a drag. Set up in my garage. I don't shoot much in the summer because it's too hot to reload the garage. So that's that. There's also basically pretty hot to shoot. There are some guys who do it because they want to get prepared for the national. It's tough out there. It's 90 degrees and the sun is beating. See you in October.
How's the availability? How's the availability of components in your vehicle?
It's fine still. It's not. Everything's become more expensive.
I shoot at strap.
Yeah, scrap has become, yeah.
And it's in a way cheaper to buy.
No, yeah. From incidental expense to a more significant expense. There are not that many people making ammunition. Big demand for it now. It's right. It's like hundreds of spares. Why I've never been a hoarder, but all these guys who don't have 75 pounds of powder stored in there.
Yeah.
20,000 bullets, 20,000 primers. I'm
I'm
old enough. I started. What's my exit? My brother's one of the hoarders. Okay, well, you got a good group.
Other questions? Well, thanks very much. Mark. Great, well, thanks, guys. So a couple of follow-up things. If anybody wants to go out to either the clinic or the match on the 23rd or 24th, let me know. And we don't need a bus, 3 or 4 people want to do that. Also, we have this invite to the Cowboy Shooters Clinic Association. They offered to show us at Cowtown all the weapons and try it out. And if you're interested, I need to have at least 4 or 5 people going there. I've got 2 right now. And then anybody who wanted the 2024 gun laws in the USA, I've got 2 people. We get discounts for as many as we have. So I think it's $15 for the book that gives you all the rules of the laws in every state. With that, I want to let you know, I think I mentioned in an earlier meeting, as they reorganize the HOA and the use of meeting rooms, they're going to get preferences to the chartered clubs. So I have submitted us as a chartered club. We're on a waiting list, but I've got a good relationship with Greg because he gives us a room every month. We will be meeting here the second Wednesday of every month so that my friends Bob and Bruce can come and no more golf on Tuesday. So plan, same time, same place every month. And if there's next month, we're going to have Don Kotz talk about his experience through the Police Citizens Academy. And there's some real good ideas. We had someone from the Peoria Police talk about what the academy was like. Don's going to talk about what it was like to go through that program. I think it's an 8 or 12-week program. You see all aspects of what a policeman goes through and in the law enforcement area. With that, thanks very much. And we will post this and everything on our YouTube channel. Just go to Gun Club at Trilogy YouTube channel and you'll see all the videos we have of other past meetings. So thanks very much, everybody. Thanks.
Let me just make one
Go
comment.
ahead. Yep.
If any of you are interested in the Washington